Welcome to FRC Media News for Thursday, November 10th, 2016. I'm Keith Tebow. This week, we give you an update on how Fall River voted in Tuesday's election. We show you the new vehicles purchased for the Fall River Fire Department and preview tomorrow's Veterans Day festivities. But first, let's check in with Will Richmond, the digital news editor of the Herald News, as we talk about the news issues of the week. Will, how are you?
I'm good, Keith. How you doing?
I guess we should start right out with the election 2016. We have a president-elect, Donald J. Trump, who will be inaugurated in January. And, you know, to localize the entire election, we can talk about, or I actually invite people to watch other stations to talk about the national reaction. We've had plenty of reaction to the election on Tuesday. But let's talk a little bit about how Fall River voted. Pretty much throughout the entire ballot, Fall River voted in lockstep with the rest of Massachusetts, voting for Hillary Clinton at the top of the ballot, and pretty much with much of the other issues, except for one of the ballot questions. But talk a little bit about how Fall River voted, Will.
Sure. Well, certainly, as you mentioned, the presidential election followed the state trend in nominating Hillary Clinton for the position. What I found interesting is that while she was the selection of Fall River voters, as the majority of voters, her margin of victory was actually much smaller than most people may have expected coming out of Fall River. In the past, Clinton had been a very popular candidate here. If you go back to the 2008 primary against Barack Obama, Clinton had actually won somewhere in the 70% range of the vote.
Wow.
But this week, she took only 57, almost 58% of the vote, compared to 36% for Donald Trump. That is actually the smallest margin of victory between a Democrat and a Republican in Fall River since at least 1972, which was the furthest back we could find in the state records available online, which was the year Richard Nixon was running for president as the Republican. So smallest margin between Republican and Democrat. And in terms of vote total, I believe if you go back to 1980, it might have been one of the lowest amounts for a Democrat in the city as well. So, Fall River, in the past has been called, bluest of the blue. That title may be shrinking a little bit here based on this election result, at least.
Not as blue as it used to be, I guess, is what you can say for this election.
A little more purple.
There you go. One of the things that I like to look at is, especially in this election where we're so contentious, a lot of people who were saying they were going to the polls to vote for the lesser of two evils or even not vote at all. I just did some calculations before we started of the people who voted on Tuesday, and there were over 30,000 people who voted here in the city of Fall River. There were 380 write-ins for president, but also 660 blanks. I don't know what that means in terms of elections past, something that maybe we can look into, but that number of write-ins and blanks may be higher across the country than maybe we have seen in the past. You guys didn't do anything on this in terms of a research in terms of blanks and write-ins?
No, but I'm not surprised that that's the case. And this is highly unscientific and certainly not limited to Fall River, but leading up to the elections, we ran a couple of polls through Twitter. We did them after the last two debates and then the day before the election, asking people who they thought would be president on November 9th or who they would vote for. And write-ins surprisingly were a high number. Even in some cases, people were saying they were more likely to write someone in than vote for a third-party candidate. So I think people were looking for that option to say neither Trump or Clinton, and that was the route that they took.
Right. As we mentioned, over 30,000 people voted here in the city of Fall River. We had the opportunity to speak with Election Commission Chairwoman Elizabeth Camara. And she first talks about, in one of the two cuts that we have here, she talked about how there were no problems at the polls, and actually people were very enthusiastic to vote this year.
It almost sounded like in some polls as though there was a party going on because there was so much talking and people laughing. but I didn't see any issues arising. I didn't receive any type of complaints of anything going on at the polls. When I went there, everybody seemed to be patient, standing in line and waiting. They were waiting in long lines before it opened.
And also, as you know, Will, this year was the first year across Massachusetts that people had the opportunity to vote early 2 weeks prior to the election. And in the second cut we have here from Chairperson Camara, she mentions that in the city of Fall River, the early voting was well received.
I thought it went really well for the first time that we all had that experience for the first time. Our poll workers did really well. It was a little different training of how we did it. I thought the setup went good as far as the flow of when people came in and when they exit the building. Everyone seemed to like it. Voters came, said they were satisfied. They thought it was easier than going to the polls. They wouldn't have to wait in line, just go in and out, and all you were doing was checking in and go vote and leave.
So just to put a wrap on the election here in Fall River, as we mentioned, Fall River voted for Hillary Clinton. They also voted to re-elect the 2 congressmen that served this city, both Joseph Kennedy and William Keating, re-elected here in Fall River. And in terms of the ballot questions, Will, one of the things I found interesting was the state as a whole voted no on question 1, which would have expanded gaming here to include another slots parlor license. Fall River voters actually voted for that. What were you guys hearing when you were talking to voters about that?
Yeah, well, found it interesting. I think Fall River was actually had the second highest approval rate of that question in the state. Though amongst the top 5, there's no common theme. I think there were 2 urban areas and 3 sort of more suburban type areas up in the northern end of the state. So no real pattern on how communities voted on that. I have my sort of question in the back of my mind if somehow Fall River voters confused that question with the one being raised in Tiverton and Rhode Island about the casino there, and if they thought maybe they had some role in moving that project forward. So, you know, there may have been a little cross-border confusion on that question with some voters, I wonder.
Right. And speaking of the Tiverton Casino project, I believe as we speak, they're counting absentee ballots in Rhode Island as the casino in Tiverton passed statewide in Rhode Island. But in Tiverton, there were about 285 votes or so difference between those in favor and those opposed, in favor being on top. So there's still absentee ballots to be worked out there to see how that comes through. And elsewhere here in Fall River, they followed suit with the other ballot questions, voting down an expansion of charter schools while approving both the confinement of farm animals to vote yes in terms of expanding that confinement for farm animals, and also voting to approve recreational marijuana. We'll have more talking about the election going forward. But before we wrap up, Will, I want to go over one other story of local note. Fall River City Council last night met in a special session to vote on the tax rate for fiscal year 2017. And overall, they voted to give Fall River individual homeowners a tax break for this coming year. Explain what happened.
Yeah, so traditionally, I believe the council is going with a more equal rate between property and business tax rates. This year, they've decided to split that a little bit. So for this year, the rate, the tax factor rate is a little bit lower than that of the business rate. This will mean that for the average annual tax bill would be about $2,982 for a home valued at $212,000, with meaning an increase of approximately $147. For business owners, the increase is more in the line of approximately the average increase would be about $18,475, or an increase of $715 annually. For a business property valued at about $602,000.
Right. So those who look at the tax rate, the residential tax rate for fiscal year 2017, again, pending approval by the Department of Revenue, will be $14.01 per $1,000 value. Last year was $13.63. so a 38-cent increase for homeowners, while on the commercial side, the tax rate will be set at $30.65, where last year was $28.14, over $2.51, if my math is correct, higher this year. Again, Herald News has more information on that. We will as well here at FRC Media News. But tax rates going up slightly for both homeowners and commercial property here in the city of Fall River. All right, Will, what's happening at the paper over the next few days?
Sure. This weekend we'll be looking at the role of public safety and how they use social media to stay connected with their communities, as well as a story on the lack of teacher diversity in the Fall River school system, despite the growing diversity of the student population. So, and then along with that, we'll have full coverage of all the Veterans Day events in the area from Friday, and so plenty coming for a long weekend.
All right, well, thanks. We'll talk to you again next week.
All right, have a good weekend, Keith.
We'll have more FRC Media News right after this.
Here are some job descriptions on the latest hot job list from the Fall River Career Center. Respiratory therapist. Charlton Memorial Hospital is in need of a respiratory therapist to work per diem with variable hours per week. Graduate of an approved respiratory care program. Valid Massachusetts license in respiratory care is required, and experience in acute and chronic respiratory. Job number 807-6762. Culinary aid. Kindred Healthcare is seeking a full-time culinary aide to prepare and serve food according to instructions for residents. Must employ proper food handling techniques in food preparation and supply nursing units with resident meal trays. Job number 811-3182. Phlebotomist. BioReference Laboratories Incorporated, located at 484 Highland Avenue, is in need of a full-time phlebotomist to serve patients by preparing specimens for laboratory testing and performing screening standards. Job number 811-9690. Boston Market Corporation needs to fulfill the following restaurant positions at their 12th Street, Fall River location. Restaurant General Manager, job number 810-1007. Crew members, job number 810-0987. Delivery driver, job number 810-0996. Restaurant Supervisor, job number 810-1004. Utility Associate, job number 809-9431. For more information on these or other positions, visit frcmedianews.org or call the Fall River Career Center at 508-730-5000.
Welcome back. The Fall River Fire Department has 2 brand new ambulances. At a news conference this week, Mayor Jazio Correa announced the vehicles were recently purchased with money coming out of the city's enterprise fund.
So as you can see, they're both brand new 2016 Ford 550s 4x4 rescues. They're equipped with the latest technology. I won't go through all the details of the specs, but CPR machines, mechanical CPR machines, medications to treat patients right on site. It's really incredible, and I'm sure everyone appreciates the newer vehicles. This will also allow us to reduce our mutual aid calls, which is going to increase our revenues in that department, which we're very happy about. This will be running 7 days a week, peak hours, 7 a.m. to 7 p.m., and it will continue to deliver the absolute best medical care to our citizens and those towns surrounding us. So it's a big day. It's a very happy day anytime we add new equipment, and it just is, like the chief said, a continued commitment by my administration and the city council to continue to upgrade departments' equipment throughout all city departments. Later this year, you'll be seeing more announcements about the fire truck equipment that we're going to be purchasing as well. And we are happy to continue to do that. And even this year, we approved new police cars, 10 new police cars. So this is a day where we're celebrating the huge commitments the city of Fall River has made to upgrading vehicles and equipment in our public safety departments.
Newly appointed Fire Chief John Lynch said city residents will receive better emergency care through the use of these new vehicles.
I want to acknowledge the people who were instrumental in acquiring these fine trucks we have here. And they represent a commitment by the city of Fall River, the great city of Fall River, and the fire department to the citizens of Fall River. With these new trucks, we are providing the best in medical care, I think, of any city or town in this area. And it's an indication of where this city is going. This city is committed to the citizens of Fall River, as is the fire department.
Staying with the Fall River Fire Department now, Fall River firefighters have been unusually busy in the last week and a half, responding to a rash of blazes throughout the city. Donna Mata has more.
The latest blaze was reported at 6:45 a.m. Tuesday, November 7th, at a multifamily home at 54 Lebanon Street. According to fire department officials, the original report was for a basement fire, but when crews arrived at the scene, they saw smoke rising from multi-levels of the 4-unit apartment building in the Flint neighborhood. The actual fire, however, was contained to a first-floor closet. No one was reported injured, but one person was displaced. The cause of the fire remains under investigation. The last 2 fires erupted on October 27th. The first at a tenement on 3rd Street, which caused extensive damage to the structure, and the second one on the same day on Hope Street. No one was reported injured in either of those 2 incidents, although some residents were displaced as a result. For FRC Media News, I'm Donna Mata.
The Fall River Diocese has released the results of a final report on Catholic education submitted by its Education Task Force. Bishop Edgar DeCunha gave a synopsis during a recent news conference.
Among them, we can highlight that we need a clear, consistent, diocesan-wide standard of academic quality. We need to continue investing in our school leadership. We need to implement strategies to stabilize and to grow the enrollment of our schools. We need to align demographic research and marketing activities to establish system-wide process for financial management. We need to pursue other sources of funding beyond our own institutions. We need to build the capacity of the Catholic Education Center and establish a centralized school board.
Bishop DeCunha also thanked the Kearney family for donating $1 million to be used as scholarship money for children who cannot afford a Catholic education. Kate Kearney Larissa was in attendance to represent her family and explains to FRC Media News why they decided to donate to this cause.
Well, our family is a multi-generational family involved in Catholic schools here in the Diocese of Fall River, including my grandparents and parents and siblings and cousins who have all attended many Catholic schools. So we've seen firsthand the benefit of what it's done for our own lives, personally, professionally, and in our own faith formation.
We'll have more FRC Media News right after this.
All right, so this is Rocco. Rocco is a 5-year-old Dachshund mix. He can be very scaredy, big scaredy dog, but he's very sweet. He was surrendered to us had a previous owner, good owner. He'd be good with smaller kids, though they have to be well behaved because, like I said, he can be a scaredy dog. And if you'd like to meet him, you can come on down to Forever Paws here at 300 Linwood Street in Fall River.
I'd like you to meet Jezebel. She came to us as a mother of 7 kittens. She gave birth here right in the shelter. Unfortunately, she was so malnourished that only 3 of her babies survived. But we found her to be quite the diva. She doesn't like other cats too much. That's why she's in our diva room. And she can be a sweet cat, but she lets you know when she's done. She is such a diva, she wants someone to be there with her all the time. And if you're not, she does inappropriate things. So when you want to meet her, you can find her at Forever Paws, 300 Linwood Street, Fall River. We're open 11 to 4 every day, except for Wednesday. And you're welcome to come by Saturday and Sunday as well, because we're open.
Welcome back. Tomorrow is Veterans Day. Director of Veterans Services Ray Haig says, as has been tradition, the city plans to celebrate with a parade.
It's a very nice parade, and it's very well done. I'd like to mention the earlier time. It's stepping off at 1 o'clock and not 2 o'clock, so don't be late if you want to be at the parade. It's going to be a nice day, I understand, but it doesn't make any difference because Vets March, rain or shine. So
I was going to say, and it starts at Kennedy Park.
Starts at Kennedy Park, Upper Kennedy Park. There's a small ceremony at 12:30 at the monument at honoring all veterans. If you want to get there early, you can participate in that.
Joseph V.R. Camara will serve as Grand Marshal in this year's parade. Camara, an Azorean immigrant, served in the Vietnam War and is a Freetown resident. Haig says because veterans agencies are regional entities, it's not unusual to have Grand Marshals who serve from beyond the city's borders.
Actually, one time we had Sergeant Slaughter, who was a wrestler, and he was the Grand Marshal of the parade. But he was a Marine for 6 years, so he was invited, and he was a big draw. I mean, people remember Sergeant Slaughter, you know, on that wrestling bouts, and he came, and he was in full dress, and he was very impressive.
That'll do it for this edition of FRC Media News. You can catch FRC Media News Thursday and Friday at 6 p.m. and online 24/7 at frcmedianews.org. For all of us here at FRC Media News, I'm Keith Tebow. Have a great Veterans Day weekend, and we'll see you next week.